On the table in front of me today, an embarrassment of riches. All three will be offered in our May 2nd through 4th premier firearms auction in Bedford, Texas. 3 Winchester 1 of 1000 rifles. One of them is a 1 of 1. Another incredible deluxe custom features. And a third has done more for gun collecting than any other gun in the world. And if you think that sounds like an exaggeration, stay tuned, because this Winchester in the back has the chops to back it up. The Winchester 1 of 1000, of course, begins life as a gun marketed by Winchester for their tremendous accuracy and with a tremendous price tag to match. Unfortunately for Winchester, that cost, which was double the price and sometimes more, depending on your custom order features, was a fairly large detriment to sales. The program was far from the success that Winchester envisioned, and after only a handful of years, the program was shuttered. Now, collectors today continue to debate all the reasons why, but the results remain the same. Of the Winchester Model 1873 1 of 1000, approximately 132 were made, and today around 57 are known. The Model 1876 also had a 1 of 1000 model and similar low production numbers, with 55 made and roughly 21 known today. For a gun that is so lauded by collectors in the modern time, it was produced for only a handful of years. And from that moment that production ceased comes a period of shocking silence. No longer were they ordered, no longer were they manufactured, and they certainly weren't being collected at that time. And for all their promise and all their polish, they were almost entirely forgotten. They existed almost as whispers and ghosts. Someone had seen one. So-and-so who lived the next county over had owned one once. Even experienced collectors and now renowned experts such as eventual Winchester CEO Edwin Pugsley did not yet have the access to the information that would eventually establish these guns as American treasures. Fast forward to 1945. Author Stuart Lake had written a letter to Winchester proposing a movie idea with a Winchester 73 rifle as the star. Lake had likely mulled the idea over for quite some time when he wrote, "What I propose is to follow what might be termed the career of a selected rifle from the time it's placed in the hands of its first private owner through the adventures and exploits of several succeeding years in which it played a part." End quote. By 1950, talks were well underway between now Winchester honcho Pugsley and a man from the Stephen Hannigat Associates publicity agency in New York, whose name every gun collector should know: William H. Depperman. Depperman was instrumental in the advertising campaign for the movie we know today as Winchester 73, starring Jimmy Stewart and, of course, his Winchester 1873 1 of 1000 rifle. The campaign was the now famous search for the 1873 1 of 1000 rifles. It began with an article in the May 1950 issue of American Rifleman, penned by Depperman, and was followed by a full court press marketing effort. And its primary tool? Thousands upon thousands of wanted posters. Each poster sought, quote, the whereabouts of the 123 rare historic guns of the 1 of 1000 Winchester 73 rifles. And they offered a reward to the first 20 persons reporting their ownership, which was a brand new Winchester Model 94 deer rifle. Information was given, of course, on how to report your rifle, as well as the very important disclaimer at the end, quote, remember, we don't want your 1 of 1000 Model 73. We are only trying to find out how many of them are still in existence, end quote. The after-action numbers are recounted in what is known today as the Hannigan Report, as compiled by Depperman. It reads, over 150,000 wanted posters were produced and circulated nationwide. They distributed these posters to daily and weekly newspapers, radio stations, rifle clubs affiliated with the National Rifle Association, and 20,000 chiefs of police. In addition to these efforts, Winchester distributed it to over 50,000 Winchester dealers. They were hung in 7,000 movie houses that screened the movie, as well as internationally. The posters even found their way into the Bisley matches in England. The campaign and all its efforts could not have come at a better time. Not only did it fall squarely into the heyday of the Western in pop culture, it also touched on the very human desire to experience a great windfall and the mystery of where they might be found. Was one in your gun cabinet? Your dad's? His hunting buddies? The thought of assisting in the discovery, the thrill of discovering something valuable, the mystery, the promise of reward, all wrapped up in the Old West theme was absolute dynamite. Now, the primary purpose of the 1 of 1,000 campaign was, of course, to sell movie tickets and more Winchesters. But the result was something that no one anticipated. Awareness of rare guns was now far beyond just the sphere of gun collectors. Not only had John and Jane Q. Public been introduced to desirable guns, they had been taught to identify them. They associated a high value with them and were actively seeking them out. It was gun collecting boiled down to its primary functions. No other campaign could have been the impetus for putting these actions into motion on such a massive scale. Not only that, but the campaign made gratuitous use of the phrase, "the gun that won the West." Now, this title had been used, but sporadically up until that point. The movie not only changed gun collecting, it changed Winchester by making it part of the common knowledge of U.S. history as the gun that won the West, and by establishing that these old lever guns had value beyond simple utility. There's no other way to say it. Winchester 73 changed gun collecting forever. And this is the gun that started it all. This is the screen used. Winchester Model 1873 1 of 1,000, used by Jimmy Stewart on screen in the movie Winchester 73. There were 3 such rifles made for the film, another of which Rock Island had the privilege of selling back in 2005. And instantly setting this rifle apart are several factory-executed custom features. First, the scroll and punch factory-engraved panels, wonderfully distinct in the world of Winchester engraving and especially among 1 of 1,000 rifles. Second, the gold. Each of the engraved panels on the receiver has been highlighted with gold so as to better stand out in the black and white film of the day. Also, gold inlays run down the right and left sides of the barrel. Third is this wonderful brass plaque mounted to the right side of the deluxe buttstock. It's the one you read in the movie's opening scene. In fact, this is the specific rifle that begins this classic film. Thankfully, this phenomenal rifle is accompanied by an archive of information, including photographs, original letters, and documentation. One of the original wanted posters, the American Rifleman article by Depperman that began the campaign, production stills, the article that ended the campaign, and more, including an article by Depperman identifying the 3 hero guns by serial number. Perhaps most impressive of all the documents is the factory letter dated to April 11th, 1969 from the family of our current consignor. In other words, while this has been a very well-published and well-known Winchester rifle, it hasn't been available publicly since a few months before man landed on the moon. It's almost hard to put into words what the campaign, the movie, and this rifle did for gun collecting. Yes, the Winchester 1 of 1,000 is a gun famous for its rarity, for its deluxe features, and of course, for the movie in which it plays the titular character. But the gun, this gun, is so much more than that. It christened Winchester as the gun that won the West. It introduced untold millions to gun collecting, to quintessential gun collecting skills, as well as the high value of fine and historic firearms. And furthermore, the 1950s are often referred to as America's golden age of gun collecting, and this is in no small part thanks to the massive exposure and new participation generated by this campaign, by the movie, and by this gun. This is why gun collecting is what it is today, and it's only a Rock Island Auction Company.